This 2024 NFC South Season Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to score up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
As he throws deep downfield, it's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Here to get into another division preview for the 2024 NFL season. And today we'll be discussing the good old NFC South division here as our sixth division. And obviously we've done 5 previous divisions. Another reminder, if you haven't already, go back and listen to the previous 5 that we've done. A lot of great information there, a lot of great season prop bets that we did give for the upcoming NFL season. And like I mentioned, today we'll be getting into the NFC South. But joining me, as usual, to help me break everything down happening, or maybe not happening, in the NFC South, my main man, ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Not happening yet, you know. It's definitely about to happen. We're getting closer and closer, man. But I'm doing good. Excited to be on the Propcast again with you. Discussing the AFC South, man. Let's get straight to it. Get the people what they want, what they're here for.
Yeah, obviously, coming into this division, it's not the most exciting division, one of the weakest, if not the weakest division in all of football. And, I think every division does kind of go through that period, right? I mean, we saw the era in this division where they had, Cam Newton that was dominating so long for the Panthers. Obviously, Drew Brees for so long with the New Orleans Saints, and Matt Ryan, obviously, as well, right? Taking that one year where they got all the way to the Super Bowl, led by that historic offense. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we know, post-Tom Brady era, took them to a Super Bowl, won them a championship there as well. So, a lot of new faces, especially at the quarterback position, veteran guys coming in. We saw Derek Carr come into the Saints, a couple seasons ago. Kirk Cousins now. I know we'll talk more about the Falcons and how they're the new, exciting, shiny toy in this NFC South division. Kirk Cousins there. Bryce Young, second year. I know you in particular, last season, Chris, when we talked about our weekly player props, led us on to the Bryce Young pass attempts angle there. That was very, very profitable until the books we're starting to catch up to a little bit, but not quite enough there. And then obviously Baker Mayfield there in the state of Florida with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking over for Tom Brady here. But Chris, I mean, like I mentioned, right, not the most glamorous or exciting division, but hey, we're still going to cover all 8 divisions in NFL. But general thoughts about the NFC South?
Yeah, you mentioned, man, not the sexy division, but I think it's still some ways for us to get paid, kind of going through it. You with the divisions that are, a little bit weaker, you really want to, you got to maybe have to dial in just a tad bit more, do some reading or some listening that you might not want to do as much, but we're trying to get paid here, So like I said, I'm always excited to break down all these divisions. I'm always trying to find value with these player props. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. It's football, So yeah. Either any of these 2 teams playing against each other, I'm tuned in, probably not missing a second of it just because it's football. And I know all fans don't think that way, but that's how it is when it's football, man. So I'm excited to jump into it and see if we can find some value on the board for ourselves and our listeners.
Yeah, the first thing that kind of jumped out to me about this division was it feels like the schedule of pass defenses and rush defenses is going to be relatively easy. And I'll tip my hand here a little bit. I know I've talked a lot about unders being very, very profitable for the season long player props, but this is one division I had all 3 overs, and I think there'll be a great discussion on why I do think that. I'm sure Chris, has that as well. But before we dive into it here for the NFC South division, let me make sure to remind everybody about our merch store over at the store, Sports Gambling Podcast. Just go to store.sportsgamblingpodcast.com and you'll get 10% off everything with promo code football. lot of great stuff in there. If you want to grab some MLB gambling podcast gear, NBA gambling podcast gear, SGP stuff, DGens only stuff. There's a lot of great stuff in there: t-shirts, hoodies, hats, novelty items, things like that. So again, go there, check it out. We rebranded it a few seasons ago. It looks really nice. Shout out to the merch god, Jake Paquin, for what he's been able to do with the merch store. But again, make sure you guys get over there, 10% off of everything with promo code football. Plus, college football kicks off this week. Tune in to Sports Gambling Podcast and the College Football Experience for week 0 picks and all of your favorite futures. All right, Chris, let's get into it here, man. Let's get into the NFC South here. I'll let you lead it off, man. Where are you taking us first?
I'm going to Tampa Bay, and I had some unlucky success last season. I think maybe one of the worst plays that I gave out was Mike Evans to go under on his passing yards. I think it was, it might have been a touchdown. One or the other. We got track of it. Either way, he flew over there. I think it might have been week 6 or 7. I was looking like an idiot, taking Mike Evans to go under. So I'm going with his quarterback here, and I'm going Baker Mayfield to regress a little to the mean. I like his interceptions to go over. So I'm not playing an under, but I'm taking Baker Mayfield's interceptions to go over. Right now the number is 11.5. And I think Baker can throw 12 interceptions, man. I think, a big part of the handicap for me was you do lose Dave Canales. Of course, he's now in Carolina. So you got a brand new offensive coordinator and Liam Cohen coming up from, I think he was at Kent last year as their offensive coordinator. So he's going to be getting acclimated to the NFL. But also, I think that, just listening to some of the beat reporters, it sounds like they're going to have a few more 3 receiver sets. You do get Chris Godwin to be that slot receiver this season. Trying to find a little bit more success through the air, which I think is paramount because when you look at their running back group, they are ranked 24th. Projected to rank 24th this season and 19th in offensive line group as well. So I still do think that they're going to still continue to struggle to run the ball successfully. And I do expect this team to be playing from behind. I think the defense is probably going to take a step, just a little bit of regression back as well. So I expect the Bucs to, be playing from behind. The other things I looked deeply into on this one was just Baker Mayfield and some of the luck success that he had last season. And some of those were reasons why I lost that bet with Mike Evans. On late downs, Baker was actually the 5th rated quarterback in the NFL. As far as success and accuracy wise, he was 42nd on early down. So first down, second down, 42nd. I mean, he wasn't accurate at all. But for some reason on late downs, 3rd down, 4th down, he was actually 6th in success on those downs. The Bucs was 29th in early down success, but finished top 10 on 3rd down success. I don't think that that's going to replicate itself this season here. You look at some of the things I was talking about as far as turnover luck. Baker committed 24 turnover-worthy throws last season. Now, we know sometimes those get dropped because cornerbacks don't have hands. Sometimes they go out of bounds. Sometimes you have DBs running into each other trying to catch the football. So 24 he threw, and only 10 of them were picked off. I don't think that is going to stay the same this season. Yeah. And then the other thing I really looked into was just their prep differential and some of the rest advantage or disadvantage that they have. And when you look into those things, I found that the Bucs are -3 in prep differential, which means that throughout the 17 weeks, they're going to be at have less time to prep for their opponent 3 times less than their opponent. And then as far as rest differential, they'll be at a rest disadvantage in 2 of those games as well. I think all of those things kind of lead to Baker going up and over. He hasn't gone over this total of 11.5 since I think maybe like 6-7 years ago. But they are projected to have 24th. Like I said, 24th running back group, 19th offensive line. And I think that this will be a problem for their offense. I think Baker played a little bit over his head. New offensive coordinator. I think he comes back down to earth. And the way I wanted to do it, because I thought about taking his passing yards under or his passing touchdowns under, but I said, you know what, I'll just pick. And then when I found those numbers, I said, you know what, I'll just take Baker to go up and over his interception total of 11.5. So that's why I'm starting Baker over 11.5. I need him to throw 12 picks this year. I think he gets there.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, right? Since, like you mentioned, he's thrown those interceptions, but we know he's fully capable of throwing those interceptions. It's been since the 2021 season. He was with 2 different teams in 2022. with the Raiders. Sorry, not with the Raiders, on the Rams and the Panthers back in 2022. And then last season, his first year, I believe, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just also signing a brand new contract as well, right? So now you have that money that Baker Mayfield signed. And, a lot of times we talk about turnover props or just turnovers in general, right? Sometimes turns into the luck factor, and luck was on Baker Mayfield's side this past season. But I feel like this division in particular is Buccaneers team because of what you mentioned about that the backfield there, lack thereof, right? It's Rashad White, and it's pretty much nothing else. I mean, you take a look at the depth there, is not a lot back there. So I feel like there's gonna be another team, I believe, that's probably gonna be in more shootouts, throughout the season, maybe playing from behind. I know they do have the 11th easiest schedule, but they do face the AFC West, the NFC East, and then outside of that, they have games against the Ravens, the Lions, and the 49ers. So that's just a tough murderer's row just right there for Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. So, yeah, I couldn't talk you off of that. I was also looking at Baker in one way or another. I just couldn't get there with him. But, I mean, we know that there's sometimes questionable throws that Baker Mayfield does make. And, hopefully that translates to him throwing the interceptions this upcoming season.
Yeah, last thing.
Go ahead.
Bucks actually projected to face the top 10 schedule pass defenses as well. So it won't be I don't think it'll be as easy for them this season. I think, we'll see them, continue to try to find success. But I think all of those things will lead to Baker getting me at least 12 picks this year. Come on, Baker. Throw a couple to the DBs. Yeah,
and just, again, the fact that it's kind of going back to that running game, which I feel like it's going to be non-existent, where they're really going to have to throw the football. If you are, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the new offensive coordinator coming in from Kent State there for the Bucks. All right, for my quarterback player prop, I'm going to go over to the Saints side with Derek Carr. I'm gonna take his number to go over, and something similar to what we just talked about with the Buccaneers and really not having that the running game really being non-existent. The number right now for Derek Carr, currently you could give this number, I believe it's over at DraftKings, which was the lowest number that I saw, was 3,325.5 passing yards for Derek Carr. And you take a look at what he's done in his career, throwing the football, right? Whether he was with the Raiders for so many years, and then his first couple seasons here his first season with the New Orleans Saints. So he's gone over this number in every single season in his career except for his rookie year, where he had 3,270. Last season, he played in all 17 games, 3,878 passing yards. A season prior against the Raiders, only played in 15 games, but still got to 3,522. Prior to that, 4,804, 4,103, 4,054, 4,049, 3,496. So he's going to sling it. And the one thing that I really worry about with this team is that, again, the backfield, it's pretty much non-existent. Alvin Kamara has kind of fell off the face of the earth. They were hoping that Kendrick Miller was going to be able to take over and really give him some production in that backfield, but that really hasn't worked out. He's dealing with an injury. They brought in Jamal Williams last season, just based off of what he was able to do with getting all the touchdowns with the Detroit Lions in 2022. But he went from one of the best offensive lines to the New Orleans Saints, who lost Ryan Ramczyk for the entirety of the year this upcoming season, who's supposed to be one of their best offensive linemen. So when I talk about this team, I think it's going to be really pass happy. I do think that Derek Carr does get over this number like he has for every single season throughout his career, except for that rookie year. And last season, look, they had one of the easiest schedules. And I think that's something that's going to continue for them to have to throw the football. And let's also add to the fact here, Chris, that you talked about the new offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Clint Kubiak, the passing game coordinator for the 49ers from last season, is now the offensive coordinator for this New Orleans Saints team. So I think that's only going to help Derek Carr. And I think beginning of the last year as well, when Derek Carr got there with the Saints, there was talk that he didn't have that chemistry just yet built with the wide receivers there, right? Whether it was Chris Olave, some of the other guys that they did have there, guys like A.T. Perry, Rashad, with Shaheed there. From the things that I've read, that Derek Carr has said that he's a little bit more comfortable now with the chemistry that he's developed with his wide receivers. So I think that's only going to help him as well. So with all that being said, I think that, again, if this team is going to be trailing in games, you're going to have to rely on the arm of Derek Carr, where he's done it throughout his career. I'll take the over on his passing yards. That number's at 3,425.5 for this upcoming season here, Chris.
Yeah, this one makes a lot of sense. If I could only back you here. The couple things you mentioned. One, Derek Carr is just a gunslinger. The other thing you mentioned, being the continued improvement and chemistry developed with the wide receivers. I do think that comes into play. And then, like you mentioned, the other thing you mentioned is the corpse of Alvin Kamara. Even when Kamara was doing anything successful last season, it wasn't necessarily. It might have been out of the backfield, but it wasn't a handoff. It was a dump off, right? Like, yeah. It was a bunch of those. Alvin Kamara clearly isn't the same running back that he is, that we know him to be, 4 or 5 years ago. And I do like the wide receiver room. I've always been pretty big on Chris Olave, but like you mentioned, A.T. Perry being there, Juwan Johnson at tight end as well. I think that they have enough to, for them to be successful. The last thing I wanted to make sure. You mentioned them having a pretty easy schedule last season. This season is still projected to be the 5th easiest schedule as far as strength of schedule. So they should, there's some winnable games in there. If you're going to win, most of the time you're going to have to throw the football. So I do like Derek Carr to go up and over that number. If I think the Saints going to be successful, it's going to have to be through the air for sure.
I think it was last season, Alvin Kamara's first game of the season. I want to say he had like 11 receptions, if I'm not. It was 12. It was a third game back. He had 12 receptions on 14 targets against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But yeah, again, hopefully it's another pass offense for the New Orleans Saints. You were mentioning something, Chris?
No. You took I think we had highlighted Alvin Kamara in that game, and I don't know if it probably was you who was on his receptions, and clearly they went up and over the total in that one.
All right, before we keep it rolling here for our next round of player props, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy Pick'em gives you a chance to win 1,000 extra entry or play fantasy football the right way with Best Ball. Best Ball Mania is live with 15 million in prizes, and you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to 1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code MACHINE. And don't forget about the greatest sports handicapping contest happening at Circa Sports. They're back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away 16 million in guaranteed prizes. Imagine the regret you'll feel if you win your office Survivor pool, but it didn't enter the Circa Survivor. Don't have a trip booked for Las Vegas yet before football? Ultimate Contest Weekend is a great time to go hang out with Sean and Ryan and enjoy some of the open bar events at the greatest sportsbook in the world, August 22nd through August 24th. Use promo code SGP15 to save 15% off on your hotel room for sign-up weekend. And if you haven't already signed up and you're signing up in person between now and September 7th and you need a proxy to play from anywhere, make sure you guys go to proxy.footballcontest.com because we have a deal with them. You can save $50 off of their proxy services by using promo code SGP, and you can also get a free hat. Again, sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with a proxy. Go to proxy.footballcontest.com to save yourself $50 off with promo code SGP and score a free hat. All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here, man. Take us over to your next player prop. Where are you taking us?
So we'll go to let's go to Atlanta. I feel like we probably both gonna have some player props for Atlanta. Whole lot done in the offseason here, from Raheem Morris coming over from the Rams, and Zach Robinson also coming over, being that Rams quarterback coach, new defensive coordinator as well. The person a couple players I really want to target, but the one I like the most, and it is a little bit juice now, is Bijan. I like Bijan. I was pretty high on Bijan last year. I think, just that offense, boy. He was put in probably one of the worst positions he probably could have been in last season. So I want to target Bijan. I think that he gets up and over his touchdowns. Number is 6.5. Best number I see is about 28 cents of juice on it as well. But I think, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was the offensive coordinator change, right? Now you got Zach Robinson coming in there as the offensive coordinator, and Arthur Smith is gone. He's out of town, right? So that you expect the offense to change. One of the things that Zach Robinson does a lot with his personnel is they play a lot of 11 personnel, right? Where you have 3 receivers on the field versus it just being, a 2 tight end set when everybody knows you're going to run the football because it's on the running down. So much like the success that Kyron Williams was able to have last season, I think we can expect Zach Robinson to come over and use Bijan very, very similar. Kyron Williams ended up with double-digit touchdowns last season. I think he had 12, and we talked about him on the Propcast earlier in a previous episode. You look at the Falcons, they're projected to face the easiest schedule, not just in general for the full season, but also the easiest schedule of run defenses, with 6 of their first 9 games actually being at home. And I think that could garner some confidence for a running back like Bijan Robinson as well. So I love that. That could potentially propel him to later in the season. But I also think, like having, an older version of Kirk Cousins coming off that Achilles injury, I do think that they're going to want to use Bijan a little bit more and not have to rely on Kirk Cousins so much as we kind of saw in, the last few seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. So Bijan only ran for 4.5 touchdowns last season. And he, in my opinion, he left a lot to be desired. But especially at the beginning of the season, I think we could, like I said, I could see Atlanta really leaning on Bijan a bit more since, Cousins is coming off that Achilles injury. Falcons are also projected to have the second best offensive line. They really wanted to go out, make sure they could provide some protection for Kirk Cousins in this running game. So, I think, this team is projected to win the division. It's not supposed to be relatively close either. We're talking about one of the teams is supposed to kind of dominate their division with their win total listed at 9.5. So I think Bijan has a really good sophomore season now that, it's much better quarterback play and a stronger offensive line. It just feels like more weapons overall. I know they had a receiver go down, but outside of that, I expect this team to be successful. And I think Bijan is going to find the end zone a lot here, So I'll take him up and over his 6.5 touchdowns here.
Yeah, it's what you mentioned, right? Last season, they were trying to build around Desmond Ridder, and we saw how bad that offense was when he was there. Everything's brand new in Atlanta, right? New head coach, like you mentioned, with Raheem Morris. They brought over Zach Robinson, who was the quarterbacks coach, quarterbacks coach for the Rams as well. And also he brought over Jimmy Lake as a defensive coordinator from the Rams as well. So from the McVay tree, we can say that a lot of these guys have come to take over for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think that with Kirk Cousins, it gives me a little bit of pause that he is coming off of that, Achilles injury, where you utilize Bijan Robinson a lot more, right? I being down here in Texas, I saw what he was able to do at UT when he played, obviously, for the Longhorns. And the dude was an absolute animal. And I think that this might be the year where he does break out for the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to need him to as well, right? Not really sold on the wide receiving group here for this team. I know it's Drake London. They brought in Darnell Mooney. They're still kind of waiting for Kyle Pitts to break out. But outside of that, I think this offense is really going to have to rely on Bijan Robinson. They're all kind of waiting for it to happen. I think this might be the year where, like you mentioned with Kirk Cousins, definitely an upgrade at the quarterback position. You bring in brand new coaches here. And it was just like watching, it was like pulling teeth watching this offense last season with Desmond Ridder. So I think this should be a big Bijan year. Hopefully he's able to find the red zone and the end zone, more importantly, for the sake of your bet there. And I think this could be a big year for Bijan. He's going to be on my radar for fantasy as well. But again, a good opportunity for Bijan Robinson in his offense. And I think they're going to utilize him very, very well, are the Atlanta Falcons. All right, for my next player prop, I'll wrap it up with the Saints here. And you mentioned Chris Olave. I think this guy's just going to get all the targets in the world from Derek Carr. And I feel like his number for his receiving yards is too low. It's at 1,025.5. It's the number one, kind of correlated to what I mentioned with the over on his passing yards for Derek Carr. I think a lot of that is going to go to Chris Olave, right? But you did mention some of the other weapons that they do have. You mentioned Juwan Johnson that they just activated off of the PUP list, so he's going to be there. But it's just a fact that when you talk about that wide receiving group, Chris Olave, I think, is just going to be an absolute monster this upcoming season for this New Orleans Saints team. We take a look at his first 2 years in the NFL. His rookie year, 15 games, 79 receptions, 119 targets. Finished the season with 1,042 receiving yards, got over that number. Last season, played in 16 of the 17 games. Numbers increased with Derek Carr there, 87 receptions on 138 targets, 5.4 yards receptions per game. Finished the season with 1,123 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns last season as well. So I think those numbers, those targets are definitely going to be there. And now I think with a significant upgrade at that offensive coordinator position, I think Chris Olave is going to be featured in this offense. I think that he continues to do what he's been able to do in his first 2 years in the NFL. And we're not asking him to get, Justin Jefferson type of numbers here, or Tyreek Hill type of numbers here, or Jamar Chase type of numbers here. It's really the fact of him getting to 1,000-yard season and then just adding some more on top of that. I think that he's definitely going to be able to do that. We'll talk about the schedule of past defenses for this New Orleans Saints team in particular. In this own division, it's not going to be very good. So I think that he should be able to dominate in the division. Chris Olave, you mentioned the overall strength of schedule for this Saints team. I think it's a great opportunity for Chris Olave to keep flourishing in this offense for the New Orleans Saints with Derek Carr. So I took the over 1,025.5 receiving yards for Chris Olave. Chris.
Yeah, Chris Olave makes a lot of sense to me, Munaf. I think, I already told you how high I was on him, and then I think it just pairs really, really well. I started laughing because I got a pair for mine as well, but I think it just makes a lot of sense. We expected this offense to, we talked about the running back group and, not expecting a lot there. We're expecting Derek Carr to go out there, be a gunslinger. Then I think his guy will be a Chris Olave who, in my opinion, feels like he's kind of slept on at times. I think he, probably – musters up a really, really good season. I like him to go up and over the number as well. I think big season uploading for Chris Olave, even if they don't win a lot of games. But I do like that they are, facing one of the bottom 10 projected pass defenses as well. So it should be some quiet success as long as that offensive line can hold up, to get the ball down the field. And that's where Chris Olave can make big plays.
Yeah, 100%. I think it should be another big year for Chris Olave. For the New Orleans Saints. All right, before we get over to round 3 of our player props for this upcoming 2024 NFL season, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Rhythm. Have you ever wanted to create your own sports betting model for football, and do you even know what a sports betting model is? SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or press build a model for me, and Rhythm gives you your predictions for every game and player prop, and also has a myriad of stats, research, and trends analysis to give you even more betting insights. Simplify your betting process. College football kicking off this Saturday. We've been using Rhythm for golf and the WNBA all summer. And I'll tell you, it's been very, very profitable. We just built some models, so I know exactly what to bet on in some of the random games of opening weekend. And I've never been more excited to watch Delaware State football in my life, thanks to Rhythm. So claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by Game Time. Hey, we've all had that frustrating experience where we're trying to buy tickets to certain events, whether it's a sporting event, whether it's a comedy show, music concert, theater show, whatever the case might be. And that's where Game Time comes in. They're now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer we get to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the work and the guesswork out of buying for MLB tickets. like I mentioned, with the MLB season winding down, you probably want to get out there and see some of the high-profile events. Pick out any specific games or matchup that you love to attend. And again, you could get great deals up until first pitch for game time. They have last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. They also have flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. My favorite part about the app is you can actually get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you actually buy the tickets, so you know exactly what you can get when you arrive at that venue. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Chris, let's get into our round 3 of our player props for the NFC South division. Where are you taking us?
So we're going right back to not right where we left off, but we're going back to where we started. And this is what I was talking about, when I said the pairing. So I took Baker to go over his touchdowns because I do think he's going to be a gunslinger this year, as he always is. But I also took Mike Evans, and I wanted to talk to you about this one because it's you got a couple different numbers here that they all intrigue me. So you got stay with me if you're a listener. You got the lowest number I saw for his receiving yards is 1,025.5, right? Something that he's done religiously throughout his career. You also have over 8.5 touchdowns, which he had 13 last season. He did have a dip, only 6 in 2022, but 14 and 13 the years before that. But then maybe the most intriguing one, was his 68.5 receptions. I already said that I expected this guy to, to kind of get the football and Baker Mayfield to, just be a gunslinger as he always is. But 68.5 receptions, and I guess you're smiling because it might be something that you were looking at as well. I like it, man. 136 targets last season. Mike Evans is 31 years old, but he has not, shown any kind of signs of slowing down. I'm reading, the beat reporters that are covering this team, and all I'm hearing them saying is that they have developed even more chemistry, that they built off of last season. This came out, I think it was yesterday. And, there's just almost like a renewed energy, even though he had such a good season last season, still producing at a really good level, Hall of Fame career. You look at the 1,025 receiving yards, he's going over that, every single season except 2. And the times that he didn't, he had 25 or 24 yards short of that, coming off another 1,255-yard receiving season last season. I just could not overlook Mike Evans, especially after I, sold him short last season. And, I wrote him off. He didn't write me back, So I'm thinking, Mike Evans is, going to continue that even at 31 years old, being Baker's number one receiver, even with Chris Godwin being back and supposedly to being that slot receiver. I like it, So which one of those numbers intrigue you the most? I'm thinking more so receptions, but if not receptions, maybe yards. What do you think?
So I'm laughing from ear to ear because if you look on our tracking sheet, I wrote Mike Evans' name, and this is the exact conversation I wanted to have with you as well, that whether it's the receptions or whether it's the receiving yards that we take for Mike Evans. And it's everything that you mentioned, right? Like, I mean, the numbers speak for himself for what Mike Evans has done throughout his career. And I swear to God, me and Chris do not share our sheets in our picks before we actually do this show. That's kind of tells you how long we've been doing the show together already, that we're already sharing the same brain here. So yeah, let's break it down here, Chris. I mean, look, you mentioned the numbers for Mike Evans, and it's the fact that, number one, he's I'd say only 31 years old still, but what he's been able to do throughout his career, it's been consistent, right? Like, and I say a lot of times, if you look up consistency in the dictionary, you're going to find Mike Evans's name there. And, there's been times in any given season where he's missed maybe a game or two, but outside of that 2019 season, Chris, he's played in at least 15 games in every single season that he's been in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? And like you mentioned, he's had at least 1,000 yards in every single season he's played in the NFL. There's just been two seasons where he had 1,001 receiving yards, which was back in 2017. And then what was the other season there? His rookie year, 1,051, and then 2021, 1,035. right? But outside of that, it's been 1,100 yards. He had one season where he had 1,200 back in 2015. Last season, 1,255. And he's had at least 68 receptions in every single year except for that 2019 season. So, again, I think you can't go wrong with on either one of these. I would probably look at taking both because, like you mentioned, what everything that's coming out of the camp, that they developed even a more chemistry with Baker Mayfield and himself, and the targets just speak for himself, man. At least 120 targets in every single season, except for 2, which was back in 2020 and 2021. But he still got over the reception number of 68.5. So I'm gonna play both. We haven't. There were some divisions last year where we gave out 4 player props because we liked it so much. I'm gonna play both, honestly, in this division, or with Mike Evans in particular, right? Taking the over on his receptions at 68.5 and going over on his receiving yards as well, because I'm not confident. You mentioned Chris Godwin. I'm not sure he's going to be able to stay healthy again because he has been dealing with injuries over the past couple seasons here. Where even if I know that Mike Evans is hurt, unless it's something that's drastically going to keep him off the field where he's not able to move, the durability on this guy it's through the roof, and he's going to be out there even if it's a nagging injury. He's still going to produce. So whether he's out there with a nagging injury, he's still going to get the receptions, so it's great for us. But I think that the books they just keep getting this wrong every single year, where they're not adjusting on his win total. Sorry, on his win total, on his passing yards, and we just continue taking it because he's done it in every single season, like I mentioned, except for one where he's gotten over the projection of 1,025. I'm sorry, 2 seasons. So let's stay with it, man. I'm going to take both, man. I really couldn't talk you off of either one, but I'm going to play both here, Chris.
Yeah, clearly I couldn't talk you off either because as you said, we don't talk before the show, but I just wrote all of them down. I said, you know what, I'm gonna talk this out with Munaf and see what makes the most sense. Interesting. I think I saw this yesterday. I forgot to mention this. So Mike Evans needs 6 touchdown receptions to become the 5th player in history with at least 100 touchdown receptions in his first 11 seasons. So that's something else that kind of goes into all of this. I was doing some deep dive into, where those touchdowns came from. He had 5 touchdowns from inside the 20-yard line and that was only catching 37.5% of the targets that were thrown his way last season as well. So if we think that number goes up, because typically, you see that higher 40, sometimes lower 50%, with Baker Mayfield being there, I don't see how you don't look at that over 8.5 as well. But yeah, this is mind-boggling to me. I think I'll settle on if I had to rank them, I think it'd be touchdowns last, and I would probably look towards receptions. Like you said, he's a target machine. We know he can stretch the field. He's a possession receiver as well. He can run pretty much every route that you want him to. Big physical guy, not afraid of the contact either. So. Yeah, I like Mike Evans. I think I'll go with the receptions over 68.5. But I mean, like you said, I think one of the first receivers in NFL history to start his career, 10 plus years with 1,000 yards in each, and this is absolutely remarkable, especially with Baker Mayfield as your quarterback. So we're Mike Evans sponsored Propcast today. We both like Mike Evans, and I'm gonna be right there with you.
Yeah, the best number you could get is over on FanDuel right now, 1,025.5 on the over, minus 112. If you want to buy it up, not buy it up, but if you want to take a bigger number, get at even money. DraftKings has it at 1,050.5 for Mike Evans, and his touchdowns right now are set at 8.5 for the season. I get a plus 116 over on FanDuel, but maybe he doesn't get a couple in the first couple games there, and maybe find a live one. Like Chris mentioned, he's only 6 touchdowns away from having 100 in his career and joining some elite company to do that in his career. All right. So, yeah, Mike Evans fans here for this podcast for both myself and Chris. So that's 3 to 4 player props each from us. Chris, let's get into honorable mentions, man. Anything that you were looking at that you couldn't quite get to or, couldn't find a number for?
Drake London. I do think that, what he was able to do last season with the quarterback that he had in Atlanta, Still being able to go out there, get 110 targets, 69 receptions, and snag north of 900 yards. He only had 2 touchdowns, but of course, numbers are projected to be a lot better, especially with new head coach, new offensive coordinator. We expect Atlanta's offense to look a little bit different, and I do think Drake London will have a big role in that. If I already talked about how much I like Bijan, and he was the guy that I ended up playing, but I'm looking at Drake London right now. If I see his numbers sitting at 1,000, pretty much everywhere. 1,000, it's 1,050 on FanDuel, but 1,000, you just need him to get 1,001 yards. If you tell me, that you can get 905 yards with Desmond Ridder as your quarterback, and now you get a significant upgrade with Kirk Cousins coming in and being a part of there. I know Kyle Pitts is due to have a little bit more success. We know how much Kirk Cousins loves his tight ends. You made a lot of money with TJ last year. When he was with Minnesota. So we expect Kyle Pitts to to step up his progression as well. But it's difficult for me not to want to take a flyer on somebody like Drake London, especially with Rondale Moore. They bought him over and he's already done. Done for the season already. Rondale Moore is. So wide receiver room gets a little slimmer. With just Darnell Mooney, and then of course you got Raymond McLeod as well, Kyle Pitts. I just think Drake London will be that number 1 guy, and I do think he'll go up and over the 1,000 yards receiving. Just haven't locked that one in yet. What are your thoughts, on Drake London and any other honorable mentions that didn't make your card?
Yeah, Drake London makes a lot of sense, right? And especially what you mentioned with the injury with Rondale Moore now being done for the season, already put on the IR, so he's done. But you take a look at the depth there at the wide receiving group. It's Drake London, it's Darnell Mooney, it's Ray McLeod. Everybody's waiting for Kyle Pitts to break out, and maybe this is a season for him with Kirk Cousins there as a quarterback now, because like you mentioned, he's really loved his tight ends throughout his career. We talked about TJ a lot on the Propcast last season during the regular season, but this has to be the Drake London year. Even in last year, right? We talked about how bad the quarterback play was for this Atlanta Falcons team. He still finished the season with 905 receiving yards, 69 receptions, 110 targets. So I think that's only going to improve for him for Drake London. So I couldn't talk you off. I think those are the 2 main guys, especially Kyle Pitts. I think that where he was drafted by this Atlanta Falcons team, I think that they're all waiting for him to break out. So really couldn't talk you off with Drake London. One player we did mention, I don't know why I'm really, really high on this Saints offense or their players, but you mentioned Juwan Johnson for the Saints. I know he just got activated off the PUP list, like I mentioned earlier, but I wasn't able to find a number. I'm expecting that number to be a big number, because he really came on towards the end of the last season for this New Orleans Saints offense. And if it's anywhere within the 400, 500 range for Juwan Johnson, I think that's something that I would be intrigued by. Derek Carr again with the tight ends there, and I think that Juwan Johnson, there was a lot of success when they got away from the three wide receiver set for the Saints. So I think there'll be more involvement from the tight end position, whether it is Juwan Johnson or maybe even they use Taysom Hill a little bit more after paying him all that money, to be on the Saints here. So that was when I was intrigued by. Outside of that, we really didn't talk anything about the Panthers on this episode.
I was going to ask you, what were your general takeaways with what the numbers is, and can you? I'm guessing you probably feel the same way. I'm, just not 100% confident with. We expect them, we expect some regression to some positive regression to come. This was one of the worst offenses that we've seen in really, really long time as far as their EPA numbers and yards per carry, yards per pass. Offensive line was absolutely atrocious. Defense was on the field a lot, so they weren't good either. And we expect them to, have some positive regression. I know that they have a little bit of an easier schedule as well, but I just couldn't pinpoint how much success that would be. But like I said, with Dave Canales being there, and you talked about him, extensively when we did the divisional preview, when we talked about some of those season-long previews. We expect the regression, but could you get there? Was it slight lean towards over, under in any of those categories for anybody a part of that offense?
I think it's if they brought in Deontay Johnson for a reason, like he has to be that number 1 guy. Because last year, on the Propcast, we talked a lot about Adam Thielen, right? And his yards until
That was your guy.
Yeah, and it was there for the first half of the season before the market finally caught up to it. And we made some good money off of Adam Thielen on his receptions and also his receiving yards because he was pretty much the only target that was, capable. And now you bring in Deontay Johnson here. I think that from Bryce Young, do we see that him take a step forward after what transpired last season? And I don't think last season was a lot of his fault because he just didn't have the weapons, at the wide receiver position. I'm not really sold on the running back group either. It's Chuba Hubbard, it's Jonathan Brooks, who they're going to bring back from very, very slowly. They're being very cautious with him because he had a torn ACL. So not a lot excites me. So I think it has to be Deontay Johnson for this team. I think we'll continue to keep an eye on Adam Thielen for his receptions. Again, if it's still at 4.5 to start the season, I think that we got to continue taking those overs because that's one season in the books that Bryce Young and Adam Thielen have, played together. And I think that rapport, that chemistry can carry over before, maybe Deontay Johnson gets going here. Quickly want to pull up how many targets Adam Thielen had last season for this Panthers team here. Before we get to best bets, give me a second if I pull it up here. So last season, 137 targets. That was the most he's had since the 2018 season when he was with the Vikings, finished with 103 receptions. Most receptions he's had since 2018, where he had 113. But prior to that, or I should say after that, not much there until he did arrive here with the Carolina Panthers. And last season also, Chris, first season where he had 1,000 receiving yards since that 2018 season as well. So I think early on, I'll be looking at Adam Thielen props until we see what what the target distribution is going to be. But I think they're going to be in more of those games where they're going to have to be playing catch up and throwing the football, something like what you mentioned when we talked about Bryce Young and his pass attempts, because they're going to be playing from behind so much that those attempts are going to be there. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think I would look at Deontay Johnson. And I think from a weekly basis, I'd probably look at Adam Thielen early before maybe the market does catch up to it again.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think I would agree with that. Definitely going back to Thielen, and I know Dave Niles is going to want to run the football a little bit more, but until they have some success, I expect the box to be loaded, especially with Bryce Young being back there quarterback. Got to prove itself. Of course, his numbers, I wouldn't say they're inflated, but they're I would say below average as far as the projections. I see him sitting at between 17.5, 18.5 touchdowns. And he ended up throwing 11 last season. And then same thing with his yards. He ended up with north of 2,800, but he's projected around 3,200 as well. So books expecting them to, play a little bit better, but not anything great at all. And I think those are fairly, with him having a new offensive coordinator, we know what we haven't talked about on this show, but we've talked about it extensively so far, what Dave Canales has been able to do with the resurgence of those quarterbacks that he's been with the last couple of years, which landed him in this job in the first place. And then the strength of schedule. Carolina has a really easy strength of schedule. We'll see how Bryce Young can do with that. But all of those things was enough to make me say, I'll kind of pass and just, kind of focus on Mike Evans and a couple of Atlanta Falcons.
All right. So there's our player props for the NFC South division. One order of business left here. Let's get into our best bets for the NFC South division here. Chris, you want to lead us off?
Yes, sir. We're going with Bijan. If we're going to Atlanta, we're taking Bijan up and over his 6.5 touchdowns. Best number I saw yesterday when I locked this in was minus 128 on FanDuel. And it's, like I said, it's much like Kyron Williams last season. I just think that Zach Robinson being there is going to utilize that, that 3 wide receiver set. And he's going to have, just as much success. I mean, there's no Desmond Ridder there anymore, kind of holding his offense back where you could put, 15 guys in the box and not allow for any big plays to happen. So I think Bijan goes up and over the number. Also, you got Kirk Cousins coming back off that Achilles injury. So I expect him to take it slow, probably less running plays for him specifically as a quarterback, which means more of a dump off and a workload for a guy like Bijan. And I also love that, I talked about the strength of schedule. They projected to face a very weak run defense so far this season, and 6 of the first 9 games are at the crib in Atlanta. So Yeah, I think Bijan up and over 6.5 touchdowns. Best bet for AFC South.
Love it.
NFC South.
NFC South. My best bet, I mean, we talked about it extensively. I think we're on the same page here about Mike Evans. I'll go with the yardage, 1,025.5 on the over. Best number you can get over at FanDuel at -112 odds. And we talked about it. I mean, he's done this. He's been a 1,000-yard receiver every single year in his career, and he's only fell a handful of yards short just twice in his career, which was in the 2017 season, and then it was a 2020 season, 1,001 in 2017 and 1,006 in 2022. But I think that, we talked about Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans creating more chemistry and being on the same page. I think that's just obviously bodes well for Mike Evans, and it's just consistency. And I keep on saying that word with for Mike Evans. And that's just pretty much what it is. I mean, the numbers speak for himself. I think it's going to be a team that's also going to be playing from behind a lot. So I think you're going to have to throw the football a little bit more. And now, again, I think it's a theme in this outside of the Falcons. I think the running back group for the other three teams I'm really not sold on. So I think a lot of it's going to have to be on Baker Mayfield to throw the football here. And I think Mike Evans is going to be definitely the number one guy for this offense here. So I'll take Mike Evans over 1,025.5 receiving yards. Couldn't talk you off of the receptions at 68.5 as well. Like we talked about, done it in every single season in his career, except for 2 rookie season. He had 68 exactly. And then in 2019 fell 2 receptions short of getting over that number. But again, the targets are always going to be there for a guy like Mike Evans. So definitely rooting for Mike Evans to have another big year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So again, best bet over 1,025.5 receiving yards for the NFC South division. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Propcast. 6 divisions down, 2 left, which will be the East divisions for the final week of August. We'll get into the NFC East and the AFC East and NFC East. So definitely looking forward to those divisions. A lot of intriguing there as well. But 6 down, 2 more left before the 2024 NFL season is here. But Chris, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we go our separate ways?
Nah, man, I think we did a pretty good job with this lackluster division. Hopefully we can catch some of the props that we gave, and definitely looking forward to jumping into like you said, AFC East and NFC East as well to wrap it up. And like you said, we're getting closer and closer to the season. So if you guys missed anyone, definitely go back and check those out. I think me and Munaf, definitely gave out some what I think is going to be some winners. And we'll just encourage you guys to bet responsibly as we always do. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Yep, we'll be back next week. As we mentioned, make sure you guys follow Chris on X. That's at ChrisBeCappinn with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. More importantly, if you haven't already subscribed to the Propcast YouTube channel, please go and do so. Just put in Propcast SGPN in the search bar there in YouTube, and you'll see us. Just smash that subscribe button. And if you already subscribed, thank you so much. But let a family member know, friends, coworkers, whoever are into player props. We'll be here all season long for the NFL season and, of course, for the NBA season as well. All right, that's going to wrap it up here. We'll talk to you guys next week. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.